The tropical rainforests of Central America are warm, dark, and very, very wet. There's little variation in temperature between day and night, or in fact throughout the year. Plants compete so fiercely for the fugitive light that most trees spread their leaves 30 meters above the forest floor. They're so effective at gathering the sun's rays that 90% of the available sunlight never reaches the ground. But the animals that dominate the night are very different from those that are active during the dark forest days. The creatures that live in these forests inhabit a twilight world where as much rain may fall in an hour as some countries may see in a whole year. During the wettest months, so much rain falls that many species of frog lay their eggs on the constantly sodden surface of leaves, where the tadpoles spend the early part of their development until they're eventually washed off into the rising swamp below. Most forest plants have large, broad leaves to gather what little light reaches them. They're usually ribbed and pointed to shed the rain quickly, otherwise they'll break under its weight. Many animals take advantage of the leaves' size and use them for shelter. White tent-making bats chew along the mid-rib of the heliconia leaf. The leaf collapses, forming an effective tent under which the small colony can shelter from the rain. They'll use the leaf for 2 or 3 weeks, leaving each night to hunt for fruit. These caterpillars shelter in the same way, staying close together to appear larger and less edible to small predators. The hummingbird has no option but to sit it out on her tiny egg cup-sized nest. As the clouds begin to break up, a group of tree frogs gather in the reeds to spawn, triggered by the respite from the rain. The males call to attract the females, who always appear to be in short supply. The majority of frogs are active at night, and when night comes, these forest pools will ring to the chorus of a dozen or more species, eager to breed in the warm, shallow waters. The brief afternoon sunshine adds a sparkle to the beetles' green iridescence. Just one of countless thousands of species of insects that inhabit this, the richest terrestrial ecosystem on Earth. There are over 1,000 species of birds in these humid forests, and nearly 100 species of bats, including a second tent-making species. Like its tiny white cousins, Euroderma also chooses heliconia leaves to protect it from the rain during the long, damp days. Rivers and streams rise and fall dramatically as the rains rapidly drain away. 2 meters of rain may fall in a year, over 3 times the average for North America or Europe. From the air, the rainforest appears as a shaggy green blanket, covering the hills and valleys. But this apparent uniformity is deceptive. Unlike the fir or beech forests of temperate zones, where only one species of tree dominates, here there may be as many as 250 species of trees per hectare. They remain green throughout the year, continuously shedding and growing leaves. Many can flower at any time, and some produce blossoms all the year round. The upper branches and trunks play host to other plants, epiphytic species such as ferns, orchids and bromeliads, which would not survive on the forest floor. They rely on the host tree for access to sunlight, but they're certainly not parasitic. All the water and nutrients they require is washed down from above by the rains. They don't feed on the tree itself. These hanging gardens of the treetops provide a habitat for a variety of creatures, some of which are never seen on the ground. The diversity of flower shape and colour is staggering, especially among the orchids. The majority of rainforest flowers are pollinated by insects, birds or bats, and many also rely on animals for seed dispersal. Berries are eaten by birds, such as the emerald toucanet, raising its chicks within the safety of an old woodpecker hole. It feeds its chicks mainly insects, but fruits and berries are a major part of the adult's diet, along with small reptiles and nestling birds. Most of the seeds eaten by the bird pass through its body unchanged and are eventually scattered over the forest floor. Seed dispersers can come in many guises. The formidable-looking green iguana is the largest lizard in the rainforest. It can reach a length of almost 2 meters. Despite its appearance, it's almost entirely herbivorous. It spends the day basking high up on exposed branches in the warmth of the sun. The crested males are constantly on the alert for rival males and large birds of prey. His attention is caught by a chestnut-mandibled toucan, but it doesn't pose a threat to the reptile. Nor does the keel-billed toucan. Both of these birds feed on fruits and smaller animals. No one knows why they have such a large beak. It's very light and not particularly strong. It's probably more to do with display than its use in feeding. Beneath the green canopy, a small group of spider monkeys are feeding. They too feed on leaves, fruits and berries, and like the toucan, they supplement their diet with smaller animals. They rarely expose themselves above the canopy for fear of being attacked by hawks or eagles. Beneath them, a hummingbird seeks out flowers for their nectar. The bronze hermit builds its nest at the end of a leaf, where it's well camouflaged. Its beak is so long that it has to keep it upright as it incubates its 2 tiny eggs. Another hummingbird feeds on the sweet juices of the cecropia fruit. The rufous saber-wing feeds while it's still daylight. It's late afternoon, and the hummingbirds need to use every opportunity for feeding before night falls. Although many strange exotic creatures inhabit the rainforest, some are recognizable from less tropical climes, like the fox. The grey fox spends most of its time well off the ground, among the branches where it's an expert climber. It's an opportunistic feeder, hunting mice, squirrels, small birds and eggs. But it will also feed on fruit, which will still be there after nightfall. But other mammals are strange and unique to the rainforest. The coati is a small carnivorous mammal related to the raccoon. It has a flexible, sensitive snout and a keen sense of smell. These youngsters will soon be skilled in hunting food for themselves. At this time of day, the diurnal life is winding down, while the nocturnal species are preparing to begin their night shift. The bronze hermit returns to her nest for the last time. She's used every possible minute of daylight to fuel up for a night on her nest. As darkness falls, the sounds of the forest begin to change. The fading light presents new problems for filming as cameraman Dieter Plager wriggles into a hole at the base of a hollow tree. It's a tight squeeze, made more difficult by the fact that the tree is home to venomous scorpions, spiders, and snakes. But Dieter is looking for one particular type of animal that reigns supreme in the rainforest night shift. The tree is the daytime roost of several species of bat. Some are preparing to leave for the night, while others are still clinging to the inside of the trunk. In one corner, a vampire bat scuttles back into the darkness. Despite its reputation, it's almost completely harmless. Other bats huddle in small groups, while some prepare for their night flight. Outside, the evening chorus is well underway. Tree frogs, from as small as a broad bean to as big as an avocado, gather around the pools to spawn. It's now that the frogs are at their most vulnerable. Smiliska is a large species of tree frog. Crotopterus is a large predatory bat that will eat frogs, unless, like Smiliska, they have an evil-tasting mucus over their skin. The frog is dropped. Even the fish in the river aren't safe. The echolocation of the fish-eating bat is so well developed that it can detect an object as fine as a human hair protruding only a millimetre above the water's surface. Its sonic pulses have been slowed down 60 times so we can hear them. The bat homes in and, dragging its razor-sharp flattened claws through the water, scoops up its prey before transferring its catch to its mouth. In the trees above, a helmeted lizard relies on camouflage for protection. Crotopterus, having recovered from its encounter with the tree frog, is still on the lookout for a meal. It uses a combination of sound and sight. Bats aren't nearly as blind as people think. The lizard is completely helpless and shrouded within the bat's 60-centimetre wingspan. Crotopterus is a formidable predator, taking rodents, insects, and often other bats. Not all bats are carnivorous. Many feed on berries and fruits and play an important role in the dispersal of seeds. Carolia is one such species of bat. This female has to continue to feed even though she's carrying her single offspring. It's no mean feat, as the pup may weigh almost half her own weight. The piper plant has fruits that grow vertically and seems to have evolved in this way specifically with bats in mind. At normal filming speed, it's almost impossible to see the bat in action. Only in slow motion can we see the bat fly in, take its time to select a ripe fruit, and then pull it from the branch. The fruits are packed with seeds, and the bat eats them before discarding the stem. The seeds pass through the bat's digestive system unharmed. Over 60,000 can be eaten by a bat in a single night. They'll soon be scattered throughout the forest. The cecropia tree has long, fleshy fruits packed with seeds that are eaten by birds during the day and several species of bat after dark. Bats normally defecate in flight and often in man-made forest clearings, so they play a very important role in helping to reforest those areas where man has been busy with his chainsaws. Throughout the forest, fruits are ripening year-round, and the bats know where and how to find them. Getting the fruits off the plant often requires some spectacular acrobatics. But while millions of years of coexistence has led many plants to evolve their fruits specifically to suit the bat's feeding abilities, other plants rely upon bats for the pollination of their flowers. Glossophaga is a nectar-feeding bat, the nocturnal equivalent of a hummingbird. It feeds on many flowers, but one plant in particular has cashed in on its nightly visitor. Hanging in front of its nectar-filled flower, there's a large hand-shaped projection that's laden with pollen. As the bat visits the flower, the pollen rubs off as the bat is patted on the back. The bat will visit several plants during the night and carry its precious cargo of pollen, fertilizing the flowers as it does so, ensuring the plant's survival and its own food source. Only bats are known to pollinate these particular flowers. In the meantime, the vampire bat has been hunting for its first meal of the night. This one species has been responsible for much of the general public's misconceptions about bats. It feeds exclusively on the blood of other mammals and birds. It's especially a problem on farms that border the rainforest, where cows and chickens are its main victims. The bat stealthily creeps along the branch where the chicken is sleeping. Heat detectors in its nose tell it where the blood vessels are closest to the surface. Licking softens the skin, and then the bat bites. It's only a small wound, but anticoagulants in the bat's saliva help the blood to flow freely as the bat drinks. Like all bats, vampire bats are scrupulously clean animals and spend a lot of time cleaning and grooming themselves, especially after a meal. It may even sleep under the branch as it digests the chicken's blood. By the time dawn arrives, the bats have returned to their favorite daytime roosts. The birds begin their chorus, while a coati rests in the fork of a tree. Another day dawns on the forest and its rich variety of inhabitants. Despite its appearance, the tropical rainforest is a very fragile ecosystem. The interactions between the animals and plants within it are highly complex and have evolved over millions of years. Here, there are no true seasons. It's wet and warm all year round. The real changes here are when dripping day turns to night. The day belongs to a myriad of forest creatures, but the night is for the bats. Nowhere else on Earth do they display such a variety of behavior, and their effect on the very existence of the rainforest is only now beginning to be fully realized.
At night, the jungle in Panama is a dangerous place for frogs. Out of the darkness, without warning, comes death. The activities of this airborne hunter were, until very recently, quite unknown. This is the story of how they were discovered. This is Tracops, the fringe-lipped bat of South America. And these two scientists, Merlin Tuttle and Mike Ryan, working in Panama, are the ones who solved the puzzle of how the bat manages to hunt in this extraordinary way. Merlin, on the right, made the initial observations using an image intensifier to see in the dark. In one single week, he watched bats capture over 90 frogs at just one jungle pond. How exactly did they do it? These bats navigate by echolocation, but how could that help them to locate and identify a frog in the blackness of the tropical night, and do so with such accuracy that they could pounce on it at speed? And even more baffling, how could a bat distinguish, before it caught one, between an edible species of frog and one that was poisonous? All bats, by any standards, are amazingly skilled creatures. They're the only mammals that are capable of sustained powered flight, and they're extremely agile in the air. There are more than 800 species of them, and they have a wide variety of feeding habits. Some prefer nectar and can hover like hummingbirds alongside night-blooming flowers. Their long tongues can stretch as much as 1/3 of their body length, pushing deep into flowers to pick up pollen as well as energy-rich nectar. Most bats eat insects, but some relish blood and others fish, fruit, or even other bats. But no one suspected that frogs could form the staple diet of any bat. The occasional crash dive is no disaster to the fringe-lipped bat. It can swim and take off vertically from the water surface. But duckings obviously wet the fur and the wings, and that might interfere with efficient flight. So after a wetting, a bat always meticulously grooms itself. Merlin and Mike were working in the famous zoological research station on Barrow, Colorado Island, in the middle of the Panama Canal. It's a marvelous place for any biologist, rich in all kinds of animal life. An agouti, one of the most nervous and wary animals in the jungle. The forest on Barrow, Colorado is so thick that it's easier to get from one side to the other, not by foot across the middle, but around it by boat. 70 years ago, Barrow, Colorado was a mountain peak. Then, when the canal was being built, a nearby river, the Jarvis, was dammed to create an enormous lake. The rising floodwaters forced many animals to take refuge on the isolated summit, and here their descendants still flourish. Howler monkeys. And a possum. On an island where animals are so abundant, landing on an unfamiliar part of the coast requires caution. One's never quite certain of what lies underfoot. Merlin Tuttle has studied bats for 20 years all over the world. He's at his happiest, alone in the jungle, looking for them by night or by day, and it's an enthusiasm that leads him into many strange places.
By putting little radio transmitters on the backs of froggy and bats that we've caught in nets out at night, we've tracked them back to their roosting sites. These sites are often places that you'd never normally think about. They're often just little holes down at the base of a big tree where the bat can fly in right at ground level to get inside of a hollow tree. And the life in that hollow tree where the bat lives is really fascinating. There are all sorts of creatures in there. It's not just a colony of bats. I stuck my head in and very nervously started forcing my way through the tight hole. not knowing really what might be in there. I've seen everything from boa constrictors to fertile ants, highly poisonous snakes in such holes. Well, fortunately for me, there wasn't anything particularly dangerous in this hole, but it really was fascinating.
All the same, most people would prefer to avoid a tight squeeze like this. Peccaries, the South American wild pig, regularly seek the coolness of such holes, and hasty retreat would be impossible through such a narrow opening.
I no more than got inside than I could see the little poison arrow frogs. And these are an incredible little frog. They're very brilliantly colored, in this area bright turquoise, green, and black, and this is a warning to other animals to leave them alone. They're deadly poisonous. Their skins are so poisonous that native tribes used to actually extract the poison to put on blowgun darts and things to kill large animals. Well, here these little frogs are, living in complete harmony with frog-eating bats. They sit around in all kinds of little perch positions in the same hollow tree and benefit by the bats because they can eat all the little arthropods and insects and things that come to feed upon the droppings of the bats.
A peculiar flap of skin, known as the nose leaf, grows on the muzzles of frog-eating bats. Tendons on the hind feet are arranged so that the bat's own weight locks the toes in a tight grip, so tight that, asleep or even dead, the bat continues to hang. The large ears are used in echolocation. The nose leaf almost certainly serves to beam high-frequency sound pulses which are emitted through the nose. These sounds bounce off objects around them, and by monitoring the echoes with their sensitive and mobile ears, the bats are able, as it were, to see with sound. The efficiency of echolocation, together with the tremendous flexibility of their wings, enables the bats to twist and turn through the air, even in the cramped interior of a hollow tree. Bats share their homes with many other creatures, some of which are attracted there by the thick piles of bat droppings, the guano, on which they feed. Whip scorpions also come to the roost to prey on the guano feeders. Another lodger, a huge toad, Bufo marinus. Like the poison arrow frog, it's poisonous, secreting an extremely unpleasant substance from glands on its sides. But both toad and frogs were not attacked by the bats. It seemed odd that the bats, which fed so voraciously on frogs, should ignore those squatting within easy reach in the basement of their roosts. But then Merlin had never seen them pounce on poison arrow frogs out in the forest either. One thing in particular continued to puzzle him. How could the bats distinguish in the dark between poison frogs and edible ones? Surely echolocation couldn't enable them to do that. Was it possible that they recognized different frogs by their calls? That question could only be answered by experiment. Now, during the day, other hunters were abroad, a boa constrictor. In the stream, a turtle, too big for the boa. The snake glides on, searching for lizards or some unwary small mammal that might come down to the stream to drink. At the water's edge, leaf-cutter ants carve up the vegetation and carry it off to their underground nest, where they will chew it up and use it as compost on which to grow the fungus which is their food. With a load twice your size, balancing on a narrow bridge is a precarious operation. A bug with a mouthpart like a stiletto waits to take advantage of any accident. Leaves can become temporary life rafts, but they're easily boarded. Beside the pool, a water spider dangles its sensitive legs on the surface film to pick up the vibrations of any insect struggling in the water. It's evening again. The bats will soon be leaving their roosts. Now is the time for the two scientists to resume their work. One of their first experiments was designed to discover whether bats could hear frog calls. They played tape recordings of frog choruses beside mist nets and waited to see whether the bats would be attracted. They used recordings of the mud puddle frog. This species is common on the island, and each night during the breeding season, males gather in large numbers at ponds to sing for females. Would that chorus interest the bats? The results were conclusive. Frog-eating bats regularly flew into the net when frog calls were played beneath it. The bats were highly sensitive to sounds in exactly the frequency range in which the frogs broadcast their signals. The wings of a bat are delicate membranes of skin stretched over elongated fingers. Despite being thinner than rubber surgical gloves, the wings are not easily punctured. If torn, they repair themselves quickly. But there's little risk of injury in Merlin's gentle and experienced hands. The proof that bats could hear the low-frequency frog calls and were attracted to them was a major breakthrough in solving the puzzle of just how the bats hunted. But more experiments were still needed before that understanding was complete. At night, many more creatures are abroad than during the day. Fungi gleam in the moonlight, and many, at this time, discharge clouds of spores. Merlin housed his captive bats in flight cages, and here he discovered something else that was new about the behavior of Trachops, and something rather touching.
There we go.
In their cages, the bats couldn't hunt for themselves, and Merlin had to provide them with food. Minnows were plentiful and easily caught, but how could the bats be persuaded to eat them? The obvious thing to do, to Merlin at any rate, was to offer them to the bats in his hand. But not even Merlin, a bat wizard of some distinction, expected to be as spectacularly successful as this.
Even after having worked with bats all over the world for some 20 years, when I started doing this frog-eating bat research, I became really amazed at the extent to which bats could be tamed. I'd never had any need to tame bats. Prior to this, I banded them and caught them in other places and did other types of research that didn't require this kind of close experimental interaction with them. And when I started training these bats, I made all kinds of discoveries that amazed me. These bats could be trained within hours to come to my hand on call, and this must be done visually. You know, to speak of bats being blind, it's quite obvious that they're not blind. So these bats are learning who I am. They're learning to do all kinds of things, just oftentimes in a few hours or days of interaction with me. I've tried to train dogs before, and as much as I like dogs, I never was nearly as successful at training dogs. Okay, Phyllis. There we go. Perfect.
Trachops eats a wide range of foods, and in captivity, these often caught cockroaches and moths that wandered into their cage.
Come on, Phyllis. There, you did it. Now, you guys have had enough to eat tonight.
But in the wild, Trachops' favorite food is undoubtedly the mud puddle frog. The males produce two kinds of calls, some simple, some complex. Mike Ryan, the frog expert in the team, had already shown that female frogs choose the males which produced the complex calls. Was the bat equally discriminating? In an adjoining cage, they prepared to find out using two loudspeakers.
Are we all ready?
Yep, the right speaker is going to be playing the complex call. We should check that. Okay, good, good. And the left one's going to be playing the simple call, just the whine call. Okay, good, good. Yep, we're all set to go then.
The results were conclusive. When presented with a choice between simple and complex calls, the bats consistently chose the complex. As a student of frog behavior, Mike Ryan was particularly impressed.
I really remember distinctly the first time that we tested the bats in the flight cage. And as soon as we turned on the sound, the bat just immediately took off from his perch, made a beeline to the speaker. It was obvious that this bat thought that there was a frog inside the box. The incredible part of this is that here we had this animal who we had previously observed with a night vision scope catching frogs in the field. We were able to take this animal, put it in a laboratory, put it in an outdoor flight cage, and play its sounds from boxes, and the bats went right to the boxes.
Mike already knew that information about the male's body size is encoded in its call. The deeper the sound of the chucks, the bigger the male frog. Females prefer the really big males because they are a better reproductive investment. The bats might do too, because the bigger the frog, the bigger the meal. Mike tried switching speakers and played the simple call alone, a whine without the chucks at the end. It still attracted the bats, but they seemed markedly less enthusiastic. Similar tests showed that bats could even distinguish between the calls of small poisonous toads and edible frogs of the same size. It's remarkable that a bat should be able to identify the sound of a prey species in this way, and even more astonishing, perhaps, that it could do so during the incredible hubbub of the Panamanian night. This discovery revealed the horrible dilemma facing male mud-puddle frogs. The better and more conspicuously they call, the better chance they have of attracting a female. But the greater their chance of being eaten by an eavesdropping bat. But this realization by the scientists also explained an observation that had puzzled them for years. The fact that male mud-puddle frogs would often unaccountably fall silent during courtship. it was because bats were about. And that discovery, in turn, revealed more about the abilities of the mud puddle frog. On moonlight nights, they're able to see the bats coming and so take avoiding action. As courtship progresses, the frogs pair up, the males firmly embracing the females. But the arrival of a bat at the pond causes immediate panic. Tree copse may consume its own body weight of frogs in a single night. Only high-speed photography can show the full drama of the bat's spectacular pounce. Skillful though it is, a bat does sometimes fail, for the frog has one very slim chance of escape even after the bat has started its dive. At the very last moment, if it sees the swooping bat, it can duck. After the calling is finished, the pairs of embracing frogs build themselves a nest. The female extrudes not only eggs, but a jelly. The male fertilizes the eggs and then beats air into the jelly with rapid kicks of his hind legs, and so turns it into foam. A single couple may start nesting and then be joined by others, so that a large communal nest is created. Mud puddle frogs are highly successful breeders, and they have to be. At the height of the breeding season, some 2,000 frogs disappear every evening into the stomachs of bats on Barrow, Colorado alone. The pug-nosed tree frog is also hunted by the bats, but it's not so easy to capture as the mud puddles, for it hides beneath leaves. But calling from an exposed rock is asking for trouble. The rocks beside waterfalls offer some security because the noise of falling water produces many high-frequency sounds and interferes with the bat's signal reception. The green tree frog, Agalicnis, also often escapes. It has excellent vision and relies on its large red eyes and jumping ability to keep out of harm's way. It's the unfortunate mud puddle frog that bears the brunt of the bat's attacks. And the efficiency with which the bat catches them is something more than a dazzling piece of virtuoso aerobatics. It also involves the ability to detect among the croaking choruses of the jungle night not only the call of a particular species of frog, but to detect from that call whether the individual frog is a big one or a small one. The fringe-lipped bat, it seems, as well as having all its other skills, has learned how to understand another animal's language.